All right, these chemicals destroy testosterone, and here's how I avoid them. I am, of course, talking about estrogenics. By the way, they are everywhere, right? The effects? A massive decrease in testosterone over the last 100 years. Different sources say different things, but it's about a half, right? So what are the consequences? Man boobs, misshapen gentleman's equipment. I'm talking about your sausage and eggs here, if you get what I mean. Hormones, muscle mass, beard, etc. Everything that's associated with hormones and testosterone is affected by this effect, right? You literally get man boobs from having chemicals in your body, not through anything else, not through exercise, not through diet, just through what these chemicals do to your body. And they can change the shape of your gentleman's equipment, right? Think about how serious that is when I say that, all right? It effectively changes you from a man to a woman. Right, I'm talking to men here, really, right? When you get man boobs, it's actually an estrogenic effect. Like estrogen, you know, the female hormone, that's what it's referring to, right? It has estrogenic effects on men, so it basically turns you into a woman, not a good way, if there is any good way you can imagine, right? It gives you like breast tissue and like it changes the shape of your genitalia. It's not good. It's not good at all, right? It makes you fat, sick, and infertile. Infertile means you can't have babies anymore, right? That is really bad. If you need telling, right? Very, very, very bad. If you imagine your dreams are to be a father one day, a mother one day, and you can't reproduce. That's how much it affects us, right? Scared? I certainly am, right? So you might be asking me, what do I do? I certainly asked this question when I heard about this a while ago. And so today, my name is Dylan Alexander, not just today, but forever. But today, I'm going to teach you what I learned in this process, right? Through 6 tips and a Q&A session at the end as well, right? And if you want to submit some questions, click on the first link in the description or the comment below, the pinned comment below, if you want to submit questions for that section. But here are those tips, right? I want to talk about food packaging, food itself, water, materials in our everyday environment, ball conditions, and you'll get what that means when you get there, and toiletries. All of these things are ways in which we can minimize our exposure to those harmful chemicals that will destroy testosterone and affect our endocrine system, which is essentially our hormone system, right? And my main reference is going to be this book. It's called Estrogeneration. It's written by Anthony G.J. PhD. Sorry, a bit of a tongue twister there. It's called Estrogeneration. It's called the subtitle, How Estrogenics Are Making You Fat, Sick, and Infertile. Right? What I said earlier, right? Very, very important thing. And this guy, by the way, that little subtitle here says, President of the International Medical Research Collaborative, okay? And he's a PhD. He's a real doctor, okay? So you know he knows his stuff. You know that he's done his research. He actually studies his stuff and has written about it in a very rigorously researched way. It's not just some book, some story. It's a real science, medical book, right? So that's what I'm mainly going to be referring to in this video. If you want to cite my sources, right, which you should do. I'm going to teach this in my philosophy, which is basically not to be average or not to want to be a sheep or an NPC, is to be a thinker, right? Because if you aspire to be average, you're aspiring to those norms that we saw earlier, right? The norms currently is that rapid, meteoric decrease in testosterone. In addition to being divorced, obese, less than 1K in the bank, these are average conditions. If you look at the average person in the US, divorced, obese, less than 1K in the bank, right? We're not aspiring to be average, so we don't want to be like everyone else. We're not afraid of being different. We're not afraid of doing things differently so that we can have above average results. We can be extraordinary. We can be unique. And so we must think. We must be thinkers. Because the sad reality is, a lot of us today, a lot of people in the world don't think, right? But because you're watching this video, I know that you are a thinker and you want to optimize your life and you're here to do those things that other people might be, they might laugh at you, think, oh, why are you doing things so differently? Well, here's my philosophy, right? The philosophy being we shouldn't be afraid to do different things to achieve greater results than the average, right? So, the first of the 6 tips, food packaging, So, I'll first tell you about the bad stuff and then the alternatives, okay? Before I get to like a... I was making this presentation and I listed all the bad stuff in a row and I was like, it seemed like a very doomy way to start. This is why, okay? I'll list all the bad stuff first and then the alternatives because it just makes sense in that order to write things, right? The first is plastic in food, right? You might have heard in the past, maybe mother's tales or old wives' tales about, not putting food with plastic or water bottles in plastic in the windowsill or in your car or whatever. These turn out to be true. I thought it was all like, a bit wishy-washy, but it turns out that this has rigorous scientific backing to it, okay? So I used to be the person that didn't know about this at all. I used to microwave things like this, lasagna, in the plastic container. So you can see this. It's got like a plastic green container. It's got like a transparent plastic lid on it as well that you can peel off. I used to chuck that completely into the microwave and eat out of that container. Right? And I know a lot of you are screaming at me right now because this is bad, right? Without even having to be told or without even having to research it, you have an intuition, but I just didn't know. My family didn't know. My parents didn't know. We didn't know, right? And I'd get these desserts, these like chocolate pudding things and these kind of like honey things. I'd chuck them in the microwave. There'd be this like black pots, right? With a similar kind of transparent top to it. And I'd chuck it in the microwave. It'd be really hot, like piping hot. And so like, obviously, as I'll tell you about, this was bad for me. And I eat it out of the plastic container. And the reason that's bad is because the plastic from the container, especially when it's heated, leaches into the food. And there's tiny like chemicals from the plastic in the food that you eat, right? Microplastics and chemicals that derive from the plastic when it is heated will get into your food, right? And so the worst of the worst is having food in plastic associated with any heat, okay? That's a big no-no, all right? Also, when you cook food, I used to do this a lot at university and high school, I would cook food and put it straight into plastic, right? Also a no-no. Like, you might not think about that process, but that's also a no-no. The hot food, the heat with the plastic, especially bad, right? A kettle. What is a kettle? It's essentially hot water and a plastic casing, right? Your kettle is made out of plastic, right? I didn't realize this until like very recently, but that's what it is. And thankfully, I don't really make things with a kettle anymore, but that's the thing you have to consider. And there are alternatives, by the way. I'll talk about those later. Hot drinks, right? This plastic cup is pretty obvious, like the classic party cup you might drink beer out of, or, various different alcohols. But this, you might have thought that's a paper cup. That's completely normal, isn't it? Well, it turns out it's lined with a very thin layer of plastic on the inside, right? Like, think about it. A paper cup, if it was completely made out of paper, that wouldn't hold water. It would leak through, it would soak through, and eventually you wouldn't have a cup anymore, right? So to make it a cup, they have to line it with something waterproof, and they line it with plastic. Okay, that's what they do to make these very cheaply. And so what you're doing is having heat and plastic, and as I said before, that's not good for your body, all right? You're drinking parts of those plastics, and those are harming your body in the ways that I described earlier. A plastic water bottle, especially in the sunlight, like I told you before, your mother might have told you this. Like, my mum used to tell me this, and like people just generally used to tell me, oh, you shouldn't leave a plastic water bottle in the sunlight. That means it's bad for you. And I just didn't believe it. I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense, right? And it's to do with the heat, right? When the heat heats up the water and the plastic, and you drink that water, that's going to have those plastic derivatives in it. That's not going to be good for you, right? So in the windowsill, in the car, these plastic water bottles, not good, right? Any drink in plastic's not good, right? So if you buy milk in those plastic containers or Coke in these plastic containers, and they don't necessarily, go in the fridge, and I'll talk about temperature later as well, right? If you have milk for babies in plastic bottles like this, that's not so good either, right? And tin cans as well, right? And I know it seems like I'm naming everything under the sun right now, but there are things that don't include plastic as well. So your favorite tin of beans, your Coke can, your tin of sardines, these are all lined with plastic, right? You might not believe it, but that is how it is, right? And this invention wasn't necessarily with evil intent. There was no malicious intent in this. It was actually a very good revolution in terms of food safety, right? It made it so that the food wouldn't go off for a very long time, and it was very safe to eat, right? It was a revolution in terms of food safety, right? But now we've discovered that this isn't so good for us. And so if we can avoid this, then we should probably avoid it, right? Cartons as well. Same thing, right? You'd think they'd be made out of just cardboard, but they are also lined with plastic. And so they are also not so good for us, right? Not necessarily stored in the fridge, not necessarily stored in cold temperatures, as they're not good for us. The temperature thing, by the way, is just the fact that when it's hotter, it's worse. Room temperature is like in the middle, and colder is better. But any temperature, to be honest with you, you should avoid it when you can, right? Kitchen equipment, okay? Plastic spoons and knives. This, I don't know why you would use this if you have access to metal spoons and things like that. I would recommend carrying around with you a metal spoon or a fork or a knife if you're traveling a lot, right? These things are very brittle. They break apart, and you can swallow tiny pieces of these when you're eating your food. And they interact with your food in terms of the heat and the stuff like that. There's chemicals that it gives off and all that kind of stuff. It's not good. Plastic chopping boards. I really hate these because you can see, if you look at a plastic chopping board, you'll see there's marks and scars on it and stuff like that. That means that there's pieces of it coming off and going into your food. And so you're eating all that plastic, right? That's going into your body, right? A really, really shocking statistic I heard recently is that the average human person has a credit card sized amount of plastic in their bodies at any one time, on average. A credit card sized amount of plastic. If you accumulated all the microplastics in your body, it'd be a credit card sized amount. Isn't that shocking, right? And no wonder it has such profound effects on our bodies, right? So plastic kitchen equipment, big no-no. Sous vide, for the three of you this kind of applies to, this is a method of cooking meat in a plastic thing, and you immerse it in a warm bath of water, right? And so plastic and heat, obviously that's a no-no, right? So this is a method that when even going over to people's places and they tell me, oh, I've cooked this sous vide, and I'm like, I'm not a fan of that, right? I don't want to eat that. And you just have to say that. You just kind of have to find alternatives to that, right? And I'll tell you all the alternatives in a bit. Just 1 second, okay? BPA free. You might think that is safe. If it's plastic but it's BPA free, then it's safe, right? It's just marketing, right? It was well intended, right? When they discovered BPA was toxic, they were like, okay, we'll stop doing BPA. But they just put other stuff in it that's equally toxic and equally bad for you. And BPA is just one of a bunch of different chemicals in plastics that are really bad for us, okay? So it's like there's 100 different poisons in this bottle. Oh, we took one of them out, right? It's fine. Keep drinking that bottle of poison, right? It doesn't make sense, right? And it's not like they intentionally did that. It's not that like they knew about that. We kind of discovered things over time, but that's the analogy I can make, right? It's still bad for you, regardless of whether people intended to lie about it or they're just marketing it or they're trying to tell the truth. It's still bad for you, right? So, the next bit. So plastic in food is generally not a good idea. What are the alternatives? Here's the good part. If you want to heat some food, use some mugs, bowls, plates. These should be ceramic, right? Not plastic mugs, bowls, or plates. Ceramic plates, bowls, and mugs, okay? You can use glass, which is a type of ceramic, by the way, and metal, okay? Not in the microwave, by the way. Metal's not safe to use in the microwave if you need to know that, but you can use metal on a stovetop to heat things as well. So that is heating food. Kettle. You can get old style kettles like this, which have metal bodies and wooden handles and no plastic, right? So these are good to use, right? The thing is you can't use this. You won't be able to plug this in because this is designed for a stovetop, right? I'm not sure if you can find a plastic-free electric kettle. I'm not sure if that exists, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. And if you have an old style kettle, if you can get an old style kettle like this, that is fine and dandy. If you need one, right? I've not made a cup of tea in about 5 years, and so that's why I don't really exist in this kind of market anymore, right? If you want one of these chocolate sponge puddings, you can put it in a bowl and heat it up, right? That's what I should have done. If I really wanted to eat one of these, I should have put it in a bowl, heated it up, and ate it with a metal spoon, of course, right? A ceramic bowl as well, right? But really, avoiding it is better. Like if it's stored in plastic, it's left at room temperature, like temperatures go up and down in the summer and things like that. I should probably avoid this, right? If it's stored in plastic, I should probably avoid it. Storing food, coming to that point. So there's this stuff before, you can kind of store things in bowls and plates and mugs and pots and pans, things like that. There's a classic method I use of like, having a bowl and putting a plate on top of it. It works, right? Like it might not seem like the intended design, but it works, right? I see a lot of people doing that and it works like a treat, right? Silicone is also a good material to use. A lot of people think silicone is a type of plastic, but it's a type of material that is completely safe in terms of estrogenic properties, right? It doesn't have any of those, right? I read about this in the book and I was like, wow, that's interesting. I didn't really know that, right? So like the kind of rubber that's kind of silicone on the bottom of this or the lid on here is fine to use as well, right? Silicone, if it is silicone, you can make sure it is silicone, then that is fine to use, right? It's also heat proof, which I didn't know before I researched this video, but I looked at this product that I showed you before and apparently it's heat proof. So silicone is heat proof. If you can get heat proof silicone, that's great, right? So because, if this was plastic, that would be really bad, right? If you wanted to heat it up. So heat proof silicone, excellent, great. Wow. Silicone spatula. So you can get spatulas like this. I'm pretty sure most people have seen one of these around. And I think we have one in our kitchen as well. It's a silicone spatula. It works really well. It's really good for baking, by the way, I've heard, because it is really good at kind of scooping up the edges of things, right? Very good. Silicone spatula, awesome. Silicone general, great material. Fridge container. So this is a picture of a very old-fashioned fridge container. This is what people used to use to store foods in their fridge in way back. I'm not sure what time period. I'm going to guess 50s or something like that. But people used to use these kind of things. Glass, right? So ceramics, glass, that kind of thing. It was a popular thing back in the day. So if you can get one of these or some of these, then great. Use them in your fridge, right? Kitchen equipment in general. So no plastic. Metal spoons, wooden chopping boards, all great to use, all better than plastic to use in your kitchen, right? Lunch boxes, metal lunch boxes. I have a lunchbox that's from I think it used to be my mother's back in the day, and it's an old lunchbox, and it's got these kind of clasps on the side, and it still stands up today. It's very sturdy, and I remember taking it to school myself with sandwiches or whatever was in there, and they last a long time, and they're very good for you because they're not plastic, right? A metal water bottle as well. If I can see, I've got this as well. Let me just pause this for a second. I'll go find it. So yeah, I have this exact water bottle you're seeing on the screen with me here. So I practice what I preach, and most of the examples today, I have these things. So I don't take lunch anywhere, so I don't have a metal lunchbox. But if I were to take one, I take jars of food places, right? So most of these things I do implement. So let me just go back through these. So yeah, I have metal spoons, a wooden chopping board. I store my stuff in metal and ceramics as well in the fridge. So most of my meals are in a big pot. So I put the pot directly in the fridge, a metal pot. I don't use spatulas. I don't really use the oven that much. Yeah, I think that's everything that I mentioned so far. I don't use a kettle, and heating foods, I always use these things as well. So I mainly use the microwave and the stove. So metals and ceramics are fine for that. Yeah. Okay. Just to confirm that, I know a lot of people would like to talk about things that they don't actually do, but I just want to say I do actually do these things just to put you at ease with this video, right? So spring water, glass bottle, case in point. Look at my camera right now. This is a bottle of sparkling water. I love the stuff. If you ever buy me a drink, it's a sparkling water, okay? In a glass bottle as well, not a plastic bottle. Make sure it's that, because in In plastic bottles, you have that situation where the plastics leach into the water and you're drinking like a very plasticky water. It's not good, especially in terms of estrogenic effects. Coffee. So I don't drink coffee, but my ex-girlfriend had one of these, right? It's like a glass reusable coffee cup that you can bring in to coffee shops and they will make the coffee in that glass thing, right? This top bit's made out of silicone, and this bit's made out of silicone as well. And it's all glass and silicone, so it's completely safe to drink out of, and it's excellent, right? I was told, right? Great to use and great to bring around. It's very, very good, especially if you like coffee and if you like going places. Just bring this with you in like your handbag, or I'm thinking handbag because of my ex-girlfriend, but carry it on your person, in your backpack, whatever. Just it's a good thing to use if you're on the go and you want some coffee at work or wherever, right? So low temperatures are better, right? So some things, they kind of have to be stored in plastic. So I buy meat and it kind of has to be stored in plastic because of food safety regulations. So I like to freeze it because it's better. Lower temperature is better when we talk about plastics and food, right? So I store it in plastic and I freeze it and then I cook it. And once it's cooked, I don't store it in plastic. I store it in the fridge in a metal container, right? That's what I do. So if it must be in plastic, if you have any other foods that are like meat and they must be stored in plastic, then it's better to freeze them and put them at a lower temperature, right? That's what I do, okay? So meat is one of those things. You just can't avoid it. You can't buy meat without plastic these days, right? They always come in plastic, right? And there are some exceptions. Like if you happen to like own, if you like hunt or something like that, and you like get the meat directly from a deer and like, you know, cook it that night, then that's how you avoid it. But there's very few examples of that actually happening, right? In most people's scenarios, it is the fact that they have to get meat in plastic. Okay. Buying food as well. Try to avoid wrapping as well, because most wrapping is plastic. And if you get like fruit and bread and things like this, you can get them and bring your own bags that are made out of cloth and they are made out of paper. You can buy fruits and vegetables and things like that are in these reusable bags that are not made of plastic. So you can reduce the amount of plastic that you are exposed to in a day-to-day basis through the use of these kind of things, right? And it seems very like eco-friendly and all that, but that's not the goal here. If we're actually being quite selfish. We're not really caring about the planet, we're caring about ourselves, but it happens to be something that we both kind of care about, right? Like the environmentalists and the self-improvement people can shake hands there, and because we got the same goals, right? And if you want to search more into this, there's a movement called zero waste, right? Where a lot of people who don't like plastic are trying to avoid it for the sake of the planet health, right? What we care about is my health, right? What I care about is my health. What you care about is your health. But it happens to be that our interests align between the zero waste people and the people that care really deeply about their health, and so they want to avoid plastic because of that. We can research ways to do things together, right? I'm not an environmentalist. I just care a lot about my health. It's not as if I don't like the fact that it also helps the planet. Great. I think that's great. But initially, what comes first is my health. The fact that it helps the planet as well is great, right? Two things that I want are sorted. But what I care about more is my own health, right? And I think that's fine. I think that's a detail that I kind of hammer home in some videos. I think that is, some people are afraid to say that. So I just want to say that just to reassure you that that's okay. That's an okay thought to have, all right? So zero waste. Go Google that, go YouTube that. You can find a lot of resources of people avoiding plastic in their day-to-day lives. And so that aligns with what we want to do in this video as well. There's also things called eco shops. These are dotted around the country, in the UK, in the US. They are also very focused on low plastic, and it's kind of the ethos of bring your own container, fill it up here, and take it home. We don't do any packaging, we don't do anything like that. We just sell the item as it is, with no packaging, right? Imagine that. It's a very, very, it's a cool concept, and it's very difficult as a business to kind of continue, because it's so like, the customers are very sparse, right? But it looks like this, right? You kind of fill in. These will be like nuts and things like that, nuts and rice. You can just come in and put your container under there and fill up your container and then just buy the weight that the container holds, right? And it works like that. And you can buy different things like laundry detergents and things like this and all sorts of things that are very eco-friendly and plastic-free come from shops like this. So a little bit of my knowledge about that. If you're in the UK, I have often bought things from Abel & Cole in the past, and they do organic foods, which are great, and they're very good at using zero plastic in their packaging as well. Very good at it. I've never seen a company work better with this, right? Abel & Cole, if you're in the UK, right? I don't know if they are abroad as well, but mainly in the UK. So, tip number 2, food itself. So what do I have to say about food itself? There are some foods that generally have more estrogenic effects than others, and I'll tell you about that in the next part right now. So you've heard of the term soy boy, right? You might have heard people use it as an insult about this kind of like feminine looking man, this kind of chubby character. People who drink soy tend to be associated with this kind of character. But is there any kind of factual basis about this? Well, let's have a look. Man boobs, right? That's an actual medical condition called gynecomastia, right? Yeah, here it is. Not just fat. It's gynecomastia. It's actual breast tissue growing on this man's chest, right? Actual like breast, like a boob is growing on his chest, like an actual boob, right? And it's like you can have a chuckle, but it's serious, right? Imagine like having that and it's permanent, right? This is not fat you can diet off. It requires surgery to remove. You need to surgically remove that breast tissue to get rid of it, right? It's deadly serious, right? And so you're asking me probably which foods trigger this kind of effect in people. So we talked about before soy, right? Generally grains in general, wheat, oats, soy, corn, beer, peanuts, these things, and beer, by the way, is made from grains, if you didn't know, these things tend to have very estrogenic effects, okay? And beer, by the way, let's look at that. Alcohol, in general, really bad. I still don't understand to this day how people drink alcohol and just get by, right, with their life. Excuse me. 2 drinks per week measurably affects fertility. That's a fact, right? Just 2 drinks a week affects your ability to have children measurably. 2 drinks a week, right? And that's just one of the downsides, right? I could name hundreds right now, but I'm just going to name the ones I can see on the screen right now. Poor recovery, poor sleep, erectile dysfunction, poor mental performance, right? Poor recovery, I'll say this as well, right? I've had competitions in the past where, with my friends, I will say, okay, let's see who gets to X kilograms on the bench press, right? And we'll start at the same number. And I'll get there way sooner than they do because they drink a lot and I just don't. I recover quicker, I can work out more, I can do things more than they can. And so while they might gain like 1 or 2 kilograms on their bench per month, I'm gaining 5. Right? And I'm wondering what they're doing that's wrong. But of course, they drink. Their sleep schedule's not right. Like, drinking's the biggest one. Right? And it affects everything else in life. And so, for me, it's just a no-brainer. But I know there's some of you that are going to watch this video and then still drink tonight as well. Right? That's just how people are. It's just become so ingrained in society that even something so poisonous to us, just because it's well accepted, just because everyone else is doing it, people comply. Right? But we don't want to be like them. We don't want to be like sheep. We don't want to be like NPCs here. We're thinkers. Right? So think outside the box there and try to make a choice about alcohol in your life. But moving on, this is not the topic we're talking about today. Other concerns, okay? Mold. Very common with grains, by the way. Very estrogenic. So avoid those where you can. Pesticides. Particularly in the US. There's way less regulation in the US, particularly with pesticides such as atrazine, things like this. It affects all plant foods, right? And the downstream effect of those pesticides and molds on those grains as well that are fed to the cows, and the cows that produce the milk that you're drinking at the end is not a good product. Especially it's stored in plastic as well, right? It's like a quadruple hit of estrogenic effects. Grains, mold, pesticides, and the plastic container, right? It's crazy how much this affects us. What's the solution here, right? I've got 5 main bullet points here. Avoid these foods that I told you about above. Eat organic. So organic means that basically only natural pesticides are used, or the less harmful ones are used. Grass-fed beef. This is something that I do. I eat a lot of grass-fed beef. And that's, well, in fact, it's the only thing I eat because I'm on the carnivore diet, right? Organic. So when I did eat fruits in the past, it was organic, right? And I never... Well, it's been quite a while since I've eaten anything that is grains-based or nuts-based, right? Wild game, highly recommend. Tastes great, by the way. Grass-fed milk as well, okay? This is pretty hard to get. I've actually tried to get this, and it's very hard to get in the UK. But go ahead and try. Like, I used to get something called raw milk, but then I discovered that it wasn't grass-fed, and I was like, I want the best quality, so I'm not going to get milk anymore. So my diet is entirely meat. That's it. Right? But that's a story for another day. All right? If you want to know about that, comment below and I'll point in the right direction. So get rid of mold ASAP as well, right? If you have moldy bread, moldy fruit, dirty dishes lying around, like mold in your house as well. I used to live in a house quite a while ago that had mold on the ceiling and the walls, and I was a child at the time, and it was horrible living in that house. Like, I was just like choking in my sleep, and I couldn't really breathe properly. It was awful. And so get rid of that as soon as possible. Not only for the estrogenic effects, but it hurts. It harms you a lot more than you think, right? So get rid of mold ASAP. Cold, damp, and dirty is not good. That encourages mold to grow. Warm, dry, and clean is better for an anti-mold kind of trifecta if you want one there. So the third tip out of 6 is water. Okay, what does water have to do with estrogenics? So in tap water, these things have been found. Pharmaceutical drugs, the contraceptive pill, the chemical involved in that, chlorine, fluoride, these are all found in tap water. So tap water is best avoided, right? So in the water treatment cycle, basically that means that we recycle the water that we kind of use, and it kind of comes back into our taps again, right? The contraceptive pill doesn't filter out. So what we're drinking is a very dilute form of the pill, right? And also they add these very harsh and harmful cleaning agents that aren't good for us either, right? So the tap water that we drink is in effect a very dilute form of taking this pill, which is a hormonal drug, right? It's a drug that for women tricks them into thinking that they are already pregnant. Imagine a man taking that drug, that female hormonal drug, right? Not a good thing. And they've seen this because downstream from treatment plants, male fish become female. I'm going to say that again. Male fish become female. That's how strong the effect of these drugs are in the water supply, right? Because they can't be filtered out because they're so small, they can't be filtered out. And so if that's happening to the fish, maybe it's not so surprising that men are growing breasts these days, right? It's horrifying, right? So what do we do to avoid this? Solutions. Filter jugs. So I have a filter jug as well. It's right. I'll go get it actually. So it looks like this. It's what you see on the screen, by the way. Like, that's the exact one I have in my hands right now. And so that is that. And these do the job, right? Like in the book, they recommend this, and it does the job through filtering the pharmaceutical chemicals I mentioned earlier, and most of those harmful cleaning agents as well, right? It does the job. It does most of the job, but what's better, this is like the cheaper alternative. what's better is a reversed osmosis machine, right? I don't have one of these yet, but I aspire to buy one, and it does a better job, right? It's more expensive, but it does a better job than these typical filter jugs that you might see lying around the place, right? These are great. If this is what you can afford, then go ahead and buy one of these. But if you can afford more, then buy one of these, right? You can get one of these that are like fitted to the sink, so you have like a constant supply, whereas these have to be like replaced with the cartridge and everything, like refilled every time. You've got to wait for it to refill and drip through. But these are fitted under the sink, and this is a tabletop one as well, right? And you do have to replace the cartridges on these, but I think they last a lot longer than these ones do, right? Also, a shower filter is great to use. This is the exact one that I had installed into our shower, and it's good to filter out those chemicals and chlorine especially that can really ruin your skin and your body in general and your hair as well, if you worry about that. So a nice video to watch if you want to read up further on this is if you type in Huberman tap water. So there's a guy called Andrew Huberman. He talks a lot about very in-depth sciencey topics. There's a video called not called Huberman tap water, but you'll find it if you type this into YouTube. Go watch that. It's a very good video to watch to kind of read up on this kind of stuff as well. A lot of the stuff I said today has been based on that video as well. So, number 4, materials. Okay. Before we get into this, I'm going to take a little bit of a break and we'll come back and see you after that. So, peace. See you on the other side. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about materials. Okay, we're going to get into that. And by the way, during the break, I was eating my lunch in a ceramic bowl and a metal spoon, right? As you can probably tell. Oh, sorry about that. Bumped into the microphone. So materials. These include clothing materials, first of all. So polyester, polyamide. You might have heard of polyester, right? Polyamide is less kind of known, but it's a material that's very similar to polyester that clothes are made out of, right? Generally avoided, right? Because they are, in fact, a type of plastic. They're a type of plastic that's been woven into a fiber and been made into clothing, and so not recommended to wear, right? There's details about that I'll talk about later, but we'll come to that in good time. Acrylic, also a type of plastic. Nylon, same as above, right? Made from plastic, shown to affect the endocrine system, right? And there's details about that, so I'll talk about that in a second, right? So wool, natural materials like wool are fine. They're great. Cotton is great, right? As an alternative. Linen is great. Alternative, right? Basically, oh dear, look at this. The image is not shown. 1 second. Okay, the image. Types of fabric, right? There's natural fabrics and synthetic fabrics, right? Natural fabrics typically include wool, cotton, linen, silk, things like that. And synthetic fabrics are things like nylon, rayon, and the ones I showed you above, right? Like nylon, sorry, I said that already. Polyester, acrylic, things like this. That is the distinction we need to make, right? Natural fabrics and synthetic fabrics, which typically are made out of plastic, and plastic has those estrogenic effects on our body, right? So here's a list that I kind of thought about and just wrote down everything I could think of. That's natural material and that is non-natural material. Leather, wool, cotton, linen, jute, natural rubber, right? Synthetic materials, polyester, polyamide, nylon, rayon, acrylic, elastane, viscose, okay? So that is what we talk about there. To find out what the thing is made out of, just read the label, right? So in the UK at least, we have these labels that look like this. It says right on the clothing what it's made out of, 100% acrylic, then you know it's 100% acrylic, right? It might say something like 95% cotton or 5% elastane, something like that. It just depends on what the clothing is made out of, right? My standard is 90% plus of natural materials, right? If it's at least that amount, then I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can wear that, right? Especially underwear, right? This is the critical statement. This is the detail that I wanted to talk about earlier. When it's closer to the body, it's more critical that it needs to be less plastic, right? So raincoats, they're on the outside, like above a jumper, above a t-shirt, not super close to your body. It should be fine to just wear these on occasion, right? They're not super contact heavy with your body, right? And you don't wear them that often. It's all right, right? it's a necessary evil, if I can say that, right? Back in the day when they didn't have plastic, they used to have cotton, and I forgot what they call it. It's called like an oil skin or something. Basically, they get cotton and soak it in these like very water repellent materials, like a bunch of oils and like fats and things like this. And so it would result in a plasticky like material that was mostly waterproof and water repellent, right? That's what they did back in the day. But now you can't really find those around. You can make them yourself by like, melting this like waxy, resiny product into your cotton clothes. But most people don't do that, right? So raincoats, they're cheap, they're readily available. I feel like that's an okay thing to wear, like maybe, a couple times a year. It's fine, right? But underwear, that definitely needs to be cotton, right? My underwear right now, I think it's 95% cotton and 5% elastane. Elastane is basically what makes it stretchy, right? And that is what I will settle with for now. I think there are companies that make it a 100% cotton, and they are a little bit more expensive. So if you want to get those, get those. And once I get some more money, I will definitely research that as well. So, not just clothes either, right? Think about the materials around you that aren't part of your clothing, right? So, things like this: your carpet, your floor material, your sofas, your chairs that you sit on every single day that you're in contact with, right? Other furniture, kids' toys. Think about that, like when your kid picks up a toy and is chewing on it, would you want it to be a plastic toy that he's ingesting tiny microparticles of plastic? Or would you rather it be a wooden toy where those wooden little particles don't have any harm to him at all, right? What about the wallpaper? What about your phone case? Something that you touch maybe 1,000 times a day, or like for a very long period of time in the day. That's what I should say, really, right? You're in contact with your phone probably, maybe, I'm going to make a guess here and say 6 hours in the day, right? Because the thing about our phones is it shocks us, the amount of time you spend on it. Check your screen time. That's the amount of time you hold your phone for. So if you have a plastic case, you're touching plastic for that long with a relatively warm hand, right? And so that's a danger there. Plastic in contact with skin, that kind of... Okay, women know this, right? Women know that makeup that you wear on your skin gets absorbed into the skin. Men don't know this, right? The things you touch, the things that are on your skin, become absorbed into your skin, right? Even if it's clothing, if it's cloth, right? When it's heated, those chemicals go into your skin and they affect your systems, right? They've studied this to be an effect. There was a study about, they did this on dogs, right? So they put dogs in clothing, and so they saw that polyester and synthetic materials had an effect on the fertility of these dogs in this statistically significant study, right? So that's an example of like a proof of that kind of thing happening, right? So basically it's the distinction between these two kind of categories, right? Natural materials and synthetics and plastic materials, right? Synthetic/plastic materials. So cotton is good, leather's good, wood is good, stone is good, brick is good, ceramics is good. For these kind of things like maybe your floor, your walls, your things like this, it's better not to have plastic, right? Right now, my wallpaper right now is a plasticky material. But I can't do much about that because this is my parents' house and I don't have like the resources to kind of completely remodel everything in the house. Same with the floor. There's like a wood effect, plasticky kind of floor, right? And what I do is I use rugs. I don't like carpet either because it's very hard to clean. I use rugs. So I get these completely cotton rugs. I'll show you. So these rugs, right? Very soft kind of, it's cotton, right? It's a completely natural material. And I get to put it on my floor and stand on these things instead of standing on directly onto the plastic floor. And it gets to separate me from the floor, and I get to wash it as well. Right? It's like picking up a piece of the floor and washing it. Like, I've always loved rugs over carpet for this reason, because it's so easy to clean. It's so easy to clean. Right? In the future, I would like some like wood, like real wood paneling floor, or maybe some like real tiles, which is better than just plastic. Especially vinyl coated I've been in many kitchens before where there's been like this kind of fake plasticky vinyl stuff, and that's especially bad. And so, yeah, if you have the resources, do that. If not, just get some rugs and it will do the job, right? There's things like that you kind of have to kind of like patch over if you don't have the resources to afford it, right? So my table right now, for example, it's kind of a plastically wood effect material as well. What I've done is I put a tablecloth over it, 100% cotton tablecloth, and that does the job, right? That works for now, right? And there are some things, okay, let's talk about that later, but bedding, right? There's some things you can't avoid, and I'll talk about that in a bit, but bedding as well, especially. You spend 8 hours a day, some people spend more than that, in bed. So your mattress, your duvet, your pillows, your covers, your frame, right? All these things you touch for very long periods of time. That's a third of your day, right? So in my life, I've gotten a mattress. I specifically spent ages searching for a mattress that is cotton on the inside and the outside, right? It's got no synthetic materials at all. Fully cotton, right? That's quite hard to find, by the way, right? A duvet. My duvet is cotton on the outside. It's got duck feathers on the inside. Quite rare. Gift from a friend. Very lovely. I adore it to this day. And I thank that friend for giving that to me. It's a very, very good present. Pillows. Also duck, right? So I get these from various shops. Charity shops, to be honest with you. Secondhand, but they're just as good. They're really, really good. Duck and cotton, right? Duck feather, not like duck meat, okay? And covers as well. Covers I have are 100% cotton, and so they have no synthetic materials in them. The frame as well. So the frame of my bed, I don't actually have a frame. I sleep on the floor, so I don't have to deal with that. And so if you need a frame, get a wooden frame. Most frames are wooden anyway, so I don't think this is that much of a big deal. So yeah, I'll move past that. Some of this is unavoidable, as I talked about earlier. Your keyboard, your mouse, I'm literally clicking around right now using my mouse, right? And it's plastic. Some of this is unavoidable, right? This mic, this camera, all plastic, right? And so, although you might be able to come up with some kind of hacky way to kind of avoid touching your mouse or keyboard, it's tough, right? Some of these things are unavoidable, and you just kind of have to take the hit, right? If you can change 90% of the rest of your life of plastic in your environment, then that's a very big deal. You've made a difference in your life, right? If you have to take, 1 second. All right, sorry about that. There was someone at the door. So yeah, some of it's unavoidable. You can't control it, and you just kind of have to eat that cost, right? I've even thought in the past about, maybe I can just put a cotton cover over my mouse or something like that, but it's just right now it's fine. It's like the 1% left that's okay, fine, let's just leave it, right? It's okay. So, number 5, ball conditions. This is probably exactly what you're thinking, right? It is the conditions of your testicles, okay? The main point here is hot balls are not a good thing for your sperm count, for your general hormones in general. Not good, okay? So a hot bath or a hot shower, not a good idea. Particularly a bath, not a good idea, okay? Having going in the bath and staying there for hours at a time nukes your testicle health. Very, very bad. Your testicles, the reason that they are outside of your body is because they require colder temperatures, right? And so if you're heating them up above your own body temperature, that's really bad, right? They're not designed to stay at that temperature, right? I've even had people come to me and talk to me about this, that kind of thing, about how they're trying to have a kid, and they noticed that when they stopped going to the sauna and stopped having hot baths, they were able to conceive, right? So sauna, similar thing. Can't do that anymore. I'll come up with an alternative in a bit, but for now, we can't do that, right? Heated seats in cars, very bad idea, right? Think about where your balls sit when you're sitting down in a car. Right there, right? Heated, gently cooked over time. Think about that. Sitting in general as well for long periods of time generally is not good for that kind of stuff. It heats up over time. The heat from your legs kind of gathers in that kind of area, and it's not good for you to sit down for long periods of time, right? So man spread to save your balls, all right? To give it some air, to give it some ventilation, do that, all right? Especially if you have big legs. If you have big legs for muscly reasons or for fat reasons, right? In this situation, either way, especially if you have big legs, worry about this a bit more, okay? Or stand up more. So I'm standing up right now. I don't know if you can tell, I'm at a standing desk. This is what I do. I don't have a chair. I do have a chair, but it's not for sitting, right? I just kind of like use it for putting clothes on and stuff like that, right? So in the sauna, this is something I use, a hack that I use, a cold pack. Usually one of these flexible kind of style cold packs I fill up with cold water, and I literally just put it on my balls when I'm in the sauna, right? That's what I do. Yep, I get weird looks, but that's what I do. It's for the health of my testicles and for my hormonal health as well. So that's something that I just kind of have to do, right? Your phone as well. I know this one's going to be a bit controversial because a lot of people have controversial beliefs on this. And believe it or not, I was on that other side as well. I was like, that's got to be, bull crap, right? Your phone can't be bad for you, right? What does that even mean, right? And here's why. 2 reasons. Heat and EMFs, basically the waves that your phone generates, EMFs, right? So it's better to keep them away from your body, your phone, things like this, because of the heat, right? So let me just explain that heat effect, by the way. The heat, if you keep it in your front pocket close to your cojones, they will heat up your cojones, your balls, right? And that heat, as we talked about before, is not good for your balls, right? So that's one effect, right? The EMFs, they've done research and they've found that EMFs are not good for biological tissue. So basically, your human flesh, it's not good. It has negative effects on your body, right? So these are the 2 things that we have to worry about, right? So keep it away from your body. Never, ever don't put your phone in your front pocket. Ever. Right? That's the one thing I have to say about this. Maybe back pocket. Back pocket is better. Backpack. Better. The best, probably, right? Outer coat pocket. That's better than front pocket. Speakerphone. So hold it away from your face. Don't keep it right up beside your face. Like it's not good for your skin, not good for your face in general. So don't do that, right? I do this naturally. I don't like holding a phone to my face anyway. But if you do, then put it on speakerphone because it's not good to keep your phone at your face for so long. It's bad for you, right? Airplane mode reduces this somewhat, but the best one is off, right? To turn your phone off, because even when your phone is on airplane mode, it does still send signals. You don't like have full control over your phone, right? Apple has control over your phone, right? Google has control over your phone, not your controls. Like you might be able to switch things off, but how do you know if they're fully switched off, right? If you switch it off, then it's the best that you can do, right? Nothing comes in, nothing goes out, and then it's fully off, right? And even then, right, Apple's in control over that. Like think about it this way, right? When your phone is turned off, your iPhone's turned off, the Find My iPhone feature still works. How about that? Right? Weird, right? So the 6th tip here, toiletries. What are toiletries? Toiletries are basically the things you find in the bathroom. So toothpaste, toothbrushes, sun cream, any creams you have, any hair products, stuff like that. That's what toiletries are basically, right? So with this, you've got to watch out for ingredient names, okay? So particularly with this, the book recommends to avoid all ingredients that start with bens or phene in the name, right? These are naming, so there's a particular chemical group that is starting with this name. And so if you see this name, it has estrogenic effects. And so therefore it's bad for you in terms of your hormones. So avoid these ingredients. I won't explain any further because it gets a bit complicated, but this is generally what you should do, right? Synthetic fragrances, right, in personal care products. Fabric softener, detergent, anything that has this kind of synthetic fake smell to it has chemicals like phthalates and things like that that are endocrine disruptors and estrogenic kind of chemicals, right? And so I would avoid those. And I do avoid those. Perfumes, right? If you must use these, put them on clothes, not on skin. If you must. Avoid them in general. That's what I do. So, with this, I actually bought like a whole bunch of very expensive perfumes about 5 years ago, right? And I discovered that it was bad for you, and I was like, oh, I kind of have to give these up now, right? And so kind of like, I'd already, at the time, at that 5 year point, 5 years ago, I'd already gifted a bunch of them to family members, right? But then I just ended up saying, I'm not going to use these anymore. I might even sell them. But if you guys want to use them, I told them, like, I don't think it's good for me. If you don't care about that, then you can use it. But that's how it was, right? And I don't use them anymore. And if I do, on like very, very rare occasions where I like want to go out and like want to smell especially nice, I'll spray it on like the very outer layer of whatever I'm wearing. So like maybe an outside coat, right? So I've got like a shirt, a jumper, a coat, and an outer coat. I'll spray it on that, so it has no contact with my body at all. So never on skin, because it absorbs straight into your skin, and that's really bad. Not good for your body. Eco-shops. Eco-shops will also have these kind of toiletries and chemicals, what do I call these? Detergents that are very minimally made. So there's this company called Minimal, right, that commonly supply eco-shops, and they are very natural ingredient based, right? That's their whole MO, the whole modus operandi. Natural ingredients, right? So if you want some really clean ingredients, sorry about that. It's a disaster today, constantly interrupted. Sorry. Okay, so their MO is natural ingredients, right? So if you want to really kind of get down into the weeds about this, then go and buy these kind of things from eco shops, right? Very good. I often do. I like every kind of a couple times a year, I'll go and refill on these stuff, right? Because I go and like eco shops are like very kind of you go and fill up your own stuff. So I'll go and fill up, like I buy like a load of detergent, of dish soap and vinegar, things like this to clean my house and clean the things I have. And yeah, very happy with these kind of products. They're very, very good for you. And so yeah, I'd highly recommend it. This is what I do right now. So white vinegar as fabric softener. You might think this sounds disgusting, but it's very old school knowledge. Like people have been doing this for centuries, and it's a very natural way to soften your clothes, right? Don't worry, your clothes won't smell like vinegar afterwards. I've been doing this for 3 years, and I can guarantee it's not a worry, right? I've never had anyone say, your clothes smell a bit funny. It's completely fine, right? It rinses out. It's okay, right? Very old school knowledge. A lot of people don't know about this, but you don't have to go and buy the fancy fabric softener with all the scents and things like that are really bad for your body. It's really easy. It's cheap. It's great. If you wanna watch a very funny video, there's this. It's supposedly informational, but the guy speaks in such a funny way that you have to watch it. It's called like vinegar as fabric softener, and I don't remember the name of it, but the guy's wearing an orange top and he's got this blonde hair, and it's hilarious. It's about 2 minutes long, so if you have time, go check that out if you want to laugh. But yeah, let me continue on this lecture. Shampoo and body wash. So most of the body washes and shampoos you get in the convenience store, the grocery store, whatever you want to call it, they're very synthetic. They have all these added ingredients and unnecessary kind of fillers in there that are not so good for you. I'd get the natural alternative, right? So you might see people selling these things at marketplaces, things like that, and you might even know of companies that do this. I know of like maybe 1 or 2 companies. I can't think of them right now off the top of my head, but they do these kind of things, right? So I have a bar of shampoo that I've used. So someone gave me a bar of shampoo, and I still use that bar of shampoo to this day. And it's been about, I want to say 2-3 years since that person gave me that bar of shampoo. And as you can see, I don't have much need for shampoo. Whoops, just messed up my hair there. I don't have much need for shampoo because I'm a guy. I don't have much hair. I don't wash my hair that often. In fact, very rarely. And so I don't need that much. And that lasts forever. And it's really, really good. I feel like it has no, like, you know how shampoo like really dries out your scalp and your hair and your skin? It really doesn't do that for me, right? And with the body wash bars as well, you can get bars of soap that are really good. And I'll show you the next one as well. I think I've got it here. Yes, this is the bar of soap that I have, right? So this is the author of the book recommended this himself, right? And it's very good. It's coconut oil soap, and it is a very, very kind of anti-allergenic, right? So it has no added ingredients. It's very bare bones, and it's great, right? And this is what I use if I ever use soap. So which is, as what do you call it? What's it called? Shower gel? Body wash. I don't use soap that much as body wash, but if I do, it's this, right? I use that to like kind of wash my hands and stuff like that as well. So, toothpaste. I stopped using toothpaste about 4 years ago, and I use baking soda instead, right? This is a similar situation. A lot of toothpaste include a lot of just filler chemicals, a lot of just like garbage that's not good for your body, especially for something that's you're putting into your mouth, not great. So I use baking soda, completely natural material, very good for your teeth, by the way. Like me, look at my teeth. Right? You wouldn't think I've not used toothpaste in 4 years, right? And I've just ate food, right? I've just ate food. So that's that. Deodorant, instead of using the synthetic, cheap kind of Axe Africa kind of body spray, I don't use anything, right? And I smell. I've told people this. Like I've told people, I don't wear deodorant. They're like, oh, surely you smell or something like that. And we've been on like hikes up mountains. I've been to like dance festivals where I haven't been able to like shower all day. I've been dancing all day. And I tell them, look, come and smell me right now. Like, smell me, bro. And they're like, they smell me. They're like, mate, you smell fine. You smell great. Right? I don't use anything. No perfume, no deodorant, no nothing. Right? I feel like if you're eating healthy and if you're living healthy, you shouldn't smell bad. If you shower every day, you shouldn't smell bad. Right? And if you don't want to go down that route, there are natural alternatives. Like I mentioned above, those natural soap bars, natural things like that. You can use things like that. Maybe you can use a bar of soap itself. I don't know. Maybe that's a good hack. I don't know about that. But there are natural deodorants you can use. I've definitely seen those around in eco shops as well, right? This is most of my life, by the way. I've never really used deodorant. I used it for like, a week or two in like when I was 11 because my dad gave it to me. And I was like, oh, sure, I'm supposed to use this? I'm like, okay, fine, I'll use it. And yeah, since then, I've never used it really, right? Okay, sun cream, right? All the above applies, obviously, with the bens, the phene kind of prefixes to the chemicals. But with sunscreen, also, aluminium isn't great for you, right? Get a zinc-based one instead. These tend to be a bit more expensive because they are rarer. Like, people don't really make these a lot. But if you get these, they're generally higher quality as well, right? And I've seen people use tallow as well. So if you can get one that's tallow and zinc based. That's like the most natural form of it as well. You can even make your own. I've seen people make their own from tallow and zinc oxide, I believe, and a bit of beeswax, right? And apparently that works. A 3-ingredient sunscreen, right? I don't know. I've never had to use sunscreen in my life, so I can't really speak to this. This is probably the only one that I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just repeating stuff that other people have told me. I'll admit here, because I am the ethnicity that I am. I've never needed to use sunscreen. Okay, I'll admit that right now. Okay, but this is something I want to include because I know a lot of you do use sun cream. I don't want to make you feel excluded in this video, right? Toilet seat, plastic versus wood, right? Obviously, wood's better because it's a natural material. I don't really have much to say there. And okay, so in my house, it's still plastic. It's quite hard to go and find a wooden toilet seat and get it installed. But if you can, I would do that, right? Once I get my own place and once I have a bit of more money and resources, I will definitely do that, right? Showerproof. And to say as well, these changes happen slowly over time. It's not as if this is like your life or death situation. If you don't do this by the end of today, then you will die. No. Slowly over time, you make these changes, right? For example, the clothes I wear in my wardrobe, slowly over time, I got rid of my synthetic materials and bought cotton t-shirts and wool jumpers. Like, for example, if I show you... So this jumper is completely wool, right? Completely wool, cotton t-shirts, and the trousers I'm wearing right now, they're completely cotton as well. And so that's happened over time. I just realized, I was like, okay, I'm not going to buy any clothing anymore that has any synthetic materials. Right? I made that choice in my life. And it happened over time. Like maybe this took... So since I started this, maybe 3-4 years ago, I'm not sure when exactly, but I started being conscious about the things I had in my life, got rid of the stuff that was bad for me, and bought stuff that was good for me. Right? And it happens over time. It happens over time. And each day, each period of time, I get better at this. And so this is just one change I haven't made yet, and I will make in the future. Right? It's all about adding levels incrementally. Like you're kind of getting to that 100%. Like you aspire to be that 100% level, but you might be at 95%. You like trying to count the percentages, 96, 97, 98. And you may never get to 100% because there's always going to be plastic around you, but that's the goal, right? Just try and get better every day. That's what it's about. Don't get overwhelmed by how much I'm talking about stuff in this video. I know it's a lot of information, but that's the purpose of a full guide. To give you all the knowledge and to... You just kind of have to go away with the one piece of knowledge that really sticks and work on that one thing. And then maybe come back and work on that second thing. Or maybe you remember it, right? And so hopefully I've inspired you to change something in your life. Even if it's one thing, I've done my job here, right? So showerproof. So you might have seen these things that are like kind of plasticky things that you have in your shower. They're made of synthetic materials. Not only that, but they're very bad because they stay in your shower, they get moist, they get moldy, they get bacteria in them, and they're not so great to have. Instead, you can get a natural one, right? So these are made of like vegetable fiber bristles or like boar's bristles, whatever. They're made from like very natural materials and you can use them in the shower. I'd recommend drying them out, by the way, right? Keep them dry when they're not being used because when they're wet, they will grow mold. They will grow bacteria. They will grow these kind of, nasty kind of gunk in them, right? So clean them out, dry them out when you're not using them, okay? That's a showerproof. Okay, cool. And where do you get these, by the way? Eco shops are a great place to go and buy those, right? It's like a long wooden handle, bristle kind of thing. Ask them for what you're looking for and they'll be able to help you out. So sponge, yes, most sponges are made of plastic, but you can find sponges, such as the one I have to wash my dishes with, that are made out of like vegetable fiber composite or whatever it is, right? So it's completely natural, no plastic at all, and it's great, right? Once again, a place where self-improvement and eco-environmentalists can shake hands here and say, yes, we have the same goal, let's use less plastic in the world. Again, Eco Shop, just like I mentioned just now. So that's the 6 tips done. Cheers to that. Let me have a drink because I'm so throat dry right now. By the way, mineral water or spring water, a lot better than tap water, which is why I drink so much of these, right? And in glass, right? So 6 tips done. Now the Q&A session. So to submit your questions, here's how you do that, right? I have a community page. It's free for a limited time. And if you get it now, it's free for life. You lock in that price, you pay $0 for the rest of your life, right? The reason you want to do it now is because it will go up to $129 a month. So go check now. If it's free, click now, join now before you miss out, okay? First link in the description or the pinned comment below, okay? So it looks like this. Click join and you'll get in. And there is bonus content, a lot of bonus content that I've wrote about and like kind of recorded here. It's really good. I recommend you go check it out. So if you enjoyed this so far, you will enjoy that, okay? But more about that later, okay? The Q&A. So first question says, does it matter if I put cold food in plastic containers for lunch and stuff? Listen, I know I said cold food is better than hot food in plastic, but the best thing, it's kind of a spectrum, right? So if you want to do the best thing, So the worst thing is hot plus plastic. I'm just not going to write P. Better is cold plus plastic, right? Sometimes that has to be the case. If you can freeze it, even better. But your lunch is going to be like, room temperature by the time it gets to work, by the time it sits around. So your lunch is going to be about here if you're going to insist on doing this method, right? The best is having no plastic, right? No P, right? That's the best. That's all I can say, really. I'm not going to say, like, it does matter, right? Does it matter if I put cold food in plastic containers? Yes, it does, to an extent, right? So if I were you, I would get a metal container like I showed you before, or some kind of container that doesn't involve any plastic, right? That's my answer here, right? It does have an effect. It's debatable how much of an effect, but if I were you, if you want to prioritize your health, like really, really prioritize your health, then go for a metal container, right? So that's my answer there. Does it matter? Yes. So I would recommend getting a metal container. That's my answer. How do I make tea without a kettle? So I believe in America they don't have kettles, right? I think they just microwave their water. I don't know if that's true or not. Or maybe they do it on the stove, or just copy after the Americans, right? I think they do it on a stove and they heat up their water like that, or they just put a mug in the microwave. You can make tea without a kettle. I know that's very sacrilegious coming from a British person, but I don't drink tea anymore, so I don't need to be patriotic like that anymore. So yeah, that's how I'd do it, all right? If you are making tea without a kettle. I don't really drink hot drinks anymore. Not really, no. I don't. Yeah, I don't. I actually don't. I only drink water. Like, that's the only drink I drink. Like, actually, right? I drink it cold. So yeah. Or you could go and get a kettle, like from an old-fashioned place, like an old, what are these called? Vintage shop, or, what's it called? Antiques shop. There you go. Yeah, get one of those. You still need a stovetop for that as well, so I guess it's a similar story. But yeah, go old school. Why does that have to be like a burden? It could be an exciting thing to do. Like when you go to make tea, it's going to be all, like a whole process. Isn't that the whole point of making tea? Like, tea is essentially a very bland drink, right? So make it exciting by doing all these things. It's great, isn't it? That's my advice. I don't really have much to say about that. There are other methods, and that's why I recommend. On the stove, in a mug, old school with an old iron kettle. That's great as well. But that's all I have to say. Number 3, I feel like there is always plastic in the environment. There's no point in trying to get rid of it. There's just so much. Does it really make any difference? I completely understand how you feel, right? And to some extent, it's not really our fault. Like, we're born into this generation where this is a thing, right? Maybe our ancestors didn't have bad intentions. Like, plastic's a very good revolution, right? It's been very good for us in a lot of ways. Food safety, in like terms of like general kind of how long it lasts, and like things like that. These kind of things with plastic and other things, they were intended to have good effects, but they turned out to be a little bit bad for us in other ways that weren't really looked at, right? And so, the same as with many other inventions, that just kind of is the case, right? And it kind of is all around us. Like, there's a lot in the ocean, there's a lot in like the environment around us, and there's a lot in kind of like the foods that we eat, and some more than others. But listen, there is a lot of it. It is all around us. But your last question matters, right? Does it really make a difference? Yes, it does, right? If you do all the things that I've suggested to you in this video, it really does make a difference to your health, and you can really change the trajectory of your health and your future family's health, right? Because it passes down, right? Because these effects pass on from generation to generation. That's how it works, right? And that's why it's been getting worse and worse over time, not just because of the environment getting worse and worse over time, but because these effects compound over time through generations. right? So it does make a difference. If you do these things, I'm telling you, it does make a difference. I get what you mean. I've thought these kind of thoughts in the past, and I'm like, it does make a difference, right? At least I can do something here, right? Even if I'm fighting a force that is like, completely inevitable, it makes a massive difference to the way that you feel and the way that you are physically, right? You might not be able to like, tangibly feel it as in like, feel like physically, but it's a real effect. People have studied this kind of thing and they know what it does to your body. And it's the stuff I'm recommending is a genuine impact in your life. So consider that. So, I think this is the last question. Yep. Bro, all of this stuff is so expensive. Surely it shouldn't cost money to live healthy. There are tribes and natives, and they don't have to pay. They don't have to pay to live healthy. They don't have to pay to live healthy. Sorry, I'm misreading that. There are tribes and natives, and they don't have to pay to live healthy. It feels like a scam. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get what you mean. But the world we live in has changed, right? This is pretty similar to the last question, actually, because the world around us isn't what we're used to, right? It used to be so clean and so like devoid of any chemicals that we kind of put into the environment, but it isn't anymore, right? It has this kind of stuff and it has these effects, but there's ways that we can mitigate against that, right? So the fact is, there are some, toxic things in the environment, but there's things we can do to make them right? That's the fact. I agree with you. Surely, it shouldn't cost money to live healthy, but it does. You have to kind of live a different life. You kind of have to live in a unique, different way because these things are genuinely bad for you, right? So yeah, I agree, it shouldn't cost money, but it does, okay? It feels like a scam. Look, I've got nothing to sell you here. I'm just purely educating you. I'm not asking for a single penny of your money. Just, my only wish is for you to learn, right? And I'm just showing you the stuff I've done in my life. Not a scam. It's just stuff that I recommend if you want to prioritize your health. That's the only thing I look for, really. Right? With these kind of things, I'm like, okay, how can I prioritize my health? And once I learn that stuff, I just pass it on to you guys. Because I think that the more educated we are as a whole species, the better the planet is. Right? The better the human race is. So with that being said, I think that answers that question. It is a little bit of a sad thing. Yes, I do agree. I do understand that kind of sad mentality or the sad sentiment. But at the end of the day, we have to be optimistic and fight through it and do the things we have to do, right? Remember what I said at the start? Be the thinker, not the NPC sheep, right? So that's the end of the questions. I promised you some more details. This community page, I talked about this before, free for a limited time. More info is here. It's an exclusive community page where we do live calls. It's a high-value network and one-to-one coaching and online courses, right? So every week we do a live call. That's like the main feature, right? So you get to come on, you get to come on and ask me a question once a week, twice a week. I'm trying to do more a week now so that more people are able to kind of make the meetings. And that's the real kind of nature of it. Like the one-on-one coaching is kind of involved in the live call. So I give you a bit of time to like kind of ask your question and I'll answer it in whatever way I can and give you my advice as to what I might do in your situation and help you move forward in your life, right? There's a high-value network of like-minded people who are just like you and me, who like to involve and to improve their lives and just to kind of bounce ideas off of each other and give each other recommendations and ask each other questions, things like that. It's a very good place for you to kind of meet like-minded people there. And a whole bunch of online courses as well, which I will show you in a little bit. The video on the front page includes all the details if you want some more details there. The bonus content is here. Online courses. Full online courses, completely there for free for you to use. It's really good. If you enjoyed this video, you'll definitely like that a lot, okay? So a recap very quickly. Food packaging. Basically, I talked about plastics in this first bit. Avoid plastics, especially with heat, with microwaves, things like that. Very bad. Food itself, so grains, beer, stuff like that, peanuts, corn, stuff like that, it's not good. Mold, that kind of stuff. Water, the stuff we get in our tap supply with the pharmaceutical chemicals and the contraceptive stuff as well. Materials such as polyester and like nylon, stuff like that. Avoid that when you can. Ball conditions, so I'm talking about the sauna, things like this. Avoid them being warm, essentially, is what I want to say, right? Toiletries. So this is stuff that you find in the toilet, stuff that's like sun cream, toothpaste, stuff like that. There are chemicals in there that you don't really want to be in there, to be in contact with your skin and to be in contact with you and inside of your body. So there are ways to avoid that by buying natural stuff instead. So that being said, that's the full recap. That's all the stuff I've taught you today. And I hope there is at least one thing that you can take with you today, because I genuinely believe that these things will make a genuine impact in your life. And with that being said, thanks for watching. I'm going to end with something that we say every time, and that is, knowledge is power, and the power is yours. Keep happy. There you go. Take care of you guys. Peace. I'll see you next time. Lovely.